is a fly in my room. I hope you guys don't see it and I hope it doesn't bother you. Hey guys, it's Kelly again and welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to a long overdue wrap up of the month of May and also the Asian Readathon wrap up. Now, I am super late on this one, but what else is new? This is also going to include the TV shows and movies that I saw in the month of May, and it's also going to include the books that I read that are connected to the Asian Readathon. If you want more information on the Asian Readathon, I will link my previous video with my TBR list in the description bar down below. I will also add links to Cindy's channel, who is going to explain basically what it is in case you didn't know. First off, I'm going to be wrapping up the movies and TV shows that I watched in the month of May. So if you want to skip through that part, I will include a timestamp for the Asian Readathon wrap-up on the screen or in the description bar down below. So if you don't want to hear about the movies, feel free to skip to the Asian Readathon wrap-up. This is going to be a quick one because I did not have time to see a lot of things in the month of May. The first thing that I saw was the end of Game of Thrones, of course, the last season, and I don't even feel like I need to comment on it just because we all know what happened. None of us are happy about it. Let's just move on. To be fair, I wasn't as angry as all of the other fans, so I was kind of meh about the season, to be honest. I felt like a lot of things were just forgotten, a lot of things were irrelevant and unnecessary, and at the same time there were a few things that I was happy with and things that I kind of saw coming and also kind of expected. All in all, it was a pretty crappy season and I'd rather just move on from it. Next up, I'm going to be talking about two movies that I saw, and one I'm going to put the cover on the screen because I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I think it's something like Mutafukaz, but I don't know. I think it's an anime. I'm not sure. I need to check with Google, but I was recommended this movie and I went in completely blind and I found it very interesting and I thought I would share it with you guys. This movie I gave 3.5 out of 5 stars. This was a cool movie. I was not expecting it. I went in completely blind. I knew nothing about it. It was just recommended by someone, and it's basically about this main character who's a little weird looking with his even weirder looking skeleton head on fire friend. So these two characters get mixed up in a very dangerous situation, and in this dangerous scenario, our main character starts noticing that he has this weird ability. He starts seeing things, he starts being able to be like a ninja and having martial arts abilities, and he's just trying to figure out what is happening to him, who he is, and what is actually going on. So it was a very interesting movie. It also had a very interesting premise and a very unique idea to it, so I would recommend this movie. I watched the dubbed version, but if it is an anime, I usually watch the original with the original audio in Japanese, but to be honest, like, the English dub was really good and the soundtrack was really awesome. There was a lot of hip-hop music, there was a lot of reggaeton and Sean Paul, which I really love, so the dub version was also good. The next movie that I watched was Replicas with Keanu Reeves, and for me this was a 3 out of 5 maybe, and I think that only the premise and the fact that it had Keanu Reeves in it kind of brought it up to a 3, just because the premise was incredibly interesting, but the way the movie was made, it felt like it rushed so much and it was very chaotic. You had to pay very close attention to figure out exactly what happened, and at the end it was all kind of just mumbled together, so I was not very happy about that. And I'm very disappointed, to be completely honest, with this movie in particular, just because I thought it was going to be really interesting. It was right up my alley. Basically, we have Keanu Reeves, whose character is a scientist and he develops a technology, or is trying to develop a technology that allows him to clone the consciousnesses of people and put them in machine bodies or something along those lines. So a bunch of stuff start happening, but like, you can tell that the premise is really interesting and it's right up my alley. I love the idea of cloning human memories and just the human brain and all together, putting it in android bodies, everything like that. I love the premise, but but the overall movie was not that great in my opinion. It just felt a little underdeveloped for some reason. Of course, if it sounds interesting to you or you have seen it, I would love to hear your opinions in the comments down below. Tell me how wrong I am and how I am dumb and didn't appreciate the movie. Okay, we're finally here. It is the Asian readathon wrap-up. So, I read almost all of the prompts that I set out to read. Of course, as I mentioned in my TBR, the group book I didn't get to because I couldn't literally get the book. There's no audiobook and I had to order it and wait for like a month, which, to be fair, if I knew I was going to be this late with my wrap-up, I probably should have done that. Either way, I will still keep it on my TBR and I will definitely read it as soon as I get my hands on the book. Now for the other prompts, I have 4 of them and that's free. That's 3. I have 4 of them and I combined 2 of them together. The first prompt was to read a book by any Asian author. So for this one, I got to read The Paper Menagerie by Ken Liu. He is a Chinese-American author, and this is a book of short stories, and it's a pretty hefty one, to be frank. I started listening to it as an audiobook. I loved it quite a bit, and I found out it was translated in Bulgarian, and I thought some of my friends and my mom would really love it, so I bought it in Bulgarian as well. And yeah, this was very interesting. I didn't have like a single short story that I didn't enjoy in some way. I enjoyed absolutely every single one of them. I did have 1 or 2 that were a bit more, not heavy, but a little hard to digest, but either way, it was really good. My personal favorite was the second short story, which was Change of State, I believe it was called, and it was one of the shorter ones. It was basically about finding yourself and like your true self, and it was set in a world where people's souls were actual physical objects that they carry around. So that idea and premise was really interesting. Almost all of the short stories in here have some kind of sci-fi element to them, and almost all of them are just, some of them are a lot more sci-fi than others. Others just have like a little bit of something, and I really love them. To be completely honest, the last one was the last short story I was not a fan of, just because it was super heavy. It was a super heavy subject, and I feel like the book ending with that one just kind of made me feel a little, I don't want to say uncomfortable, more like heavy, I guess. So even though I really liked the short story, I feel like we should have ended on something a bit more happy, maybe, or with a note towards the future. I don't know. Prompt number 2 and 3 I actually ended up combining. Prompt number 2 was read a graphic novel by an Asian author, or drawn by an Asian author, or featuring an Asian character. And prompt number 3 was read a book by an intersectional Asian author, or featuring an intersectional Asian character. Man, that was a long sentence. Okay, so I combined these 2 and I read the Korean manhwa, The 9 Faces of Love, or was it just 9 Faces of Love? I'll link it on the screen. This was again short stories-ish. There were one-shots, and basically it's exactly as it sounds. It's 9 short stories that feature different types of love, and I found this one very interesting. It featured very subtle romances between girls and between boys. It also had one of the short stories featured a love that kind of transcended above the physical bodies of humans, so that was again also very interesting. I think I loved absolutely all of them. One was very subtle, one was very kind of in your face, and the different versions of love are definitely something interesting to read about, and the art style was really pretty, so I definitely recommend if you're into manhwa and if you don't mind subtle notes towards boy love and girl love and so on. The fourth prompt is to read a book that was written originally in an Asian language and then translated, and for that I picked The Traveling Cat Chronicles by Hiro Arikawa, and this was, honestly, this read really fast. So this one I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Again, I feel like everything I read for the Asian readathon I gave 4 out of 5 stars, which is great. I tend to be a little frugal with my 5 stars, but I enjoyed all of these books. It tells the story of a cat that travels with his owner throughout Japan and just kind of observes everything that's going on in his life and observes different sceneries and different places in Japan. Now, this one was a very interesting book. It was very simple to read. The style that it was written in, I don't know if it was the translation, but the style that it was written in was very simple. The topics that were discussed were very heavy at times, so I feel like the simple narration from the point of view of the cat was very interesting because it gave all of these hard, heavy subjects a little bit of a lighter feel to them. So you were able to engulf the book easily, I guess, or at least more easily. Is that even proper grammar? I don't think it is. It follows our cat Nana, who, don't let the name fool you, is actually male, and basically his owner Satoru is trying to find him a new home because for some reason he can no longer take care of Nana. So he ends up going through different places in Japan and visiting old friends of his, and every time he visits a friend, they start reminiscing about the old days. First, he visited his junior high classmate, and we find out what their relationship was like, what Satoru went through when they were in junior high. After that, we visit his high school buddy and basically what Satoru was like in high school, after that in college, and so on and so forth. After that, we get to the very end and we already know why he is trying to find a new home for his cat. So this was a kind of book that kind of tugs at your heartstrings. I found myself crying. I know I'm embarrassing, but I found myself crying on different occasions throughout this book. I found it very interesting. It's definitely written by a cat lover for cat lovers, in my opinion, and even animal lovers in general. The animals that were presented in the book were very interesting. They all had a very different character. They all had a very different point of view. So that was really interesting to see Nana kind of interact with the different animals and finding out their opinions on some matters. So seeing everything through the cat's point of view was also interesting, and I found this book very special and dear to my heart. So something that bothered me in the beginning was that the cat on the cover was completely black, and if you've read the book, it's actually mentioned in a few places that the main character's cat, Nana, and also the other cat that is mentioned, Hachi, both are entirely white with colored spots on their forehead and on their tail, so they're mostly white. So I was like, well then, why is this cat black? And then I got to the end of the book and I found that there's this tiny little page and this tiny little paragraph here that actually explains why cat hair is black. And it is because this is actually a painting that is called Man and the World, and it is painted by a Chinese painter named Shuai Liu, who has cerebral palsy. His work is actually featured on a website that is Childcare, I think, supposed to be pronounced. I will link it here. I will also link it in the description bar down below. So this website actually features Chinese artists who are disabled, and it features all of their work. So if you want to know more about the work, you can visit the website. But I found that very sweet and very cool. I love that they included that, and I think it made the book just even more special, and I think it was a very nice touch. So that's it for my May wrap-up and my Asian readathon wrap-up. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that I'll find more time to record these months because May was kind of hectic and I feel like I need a break. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe if you like what you see and would like to see more, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!